This presentation will be on violent death. My name is Ashton Wolfe. Let's get started. What is violent death? Violent death of humans' origin traditionally are separated into such categories as murder, war, genocide, and terrorism. However, there are other types of violent death caused by catastrophic events such as accidents or natural disasters. The definition of murder. Crime of unlawful killings a person especially with malice aforethought. Something outrageous or blameworthy. Getting away with murder. Kind of makes me think of the TV show. Okay, so we're going to discuss that violent killings can be physical or natural. Physical meaning violence and abuse in a home, mass killers or serial killers, political assassinations, genocide, and terrorism. And then for natural violent killings, we'll talk about natural disasters and accidents. All right. So we're going to begin with physical violent killings. Here we go. Violence and abuse in a home. Domestic violence leads to murder is commonly carried out by males against their intimate female counterpartners in a means of control following the traditional cultural belief and or norms of male superiority. Domestic violence is common among women. According to the Domestic Abuse Shelter, about 4,000 women die each year due to domestic violence. Domestic violence is a pattern of purposeful behavior directed at achieving compliance from or control over the victim. Domestic violence is a pattern of assaultive and coercive behaviors, including physical, sexual, and psychological attacks, as well as economic coercion. And then I got this off of a domestic abuse shelter. If you want to read more information about violence and abuse in a home, there's a link provided. Yeah. On to the next. Gender differences of violent killings. Alright, in contrast to men, the killings of women by a stranger was rare. More than twice as many women were shot and killed by their husbands or intimate acquaintances than were murdered by strangers using guns, knives, or any other means. Now, I got this off of a study I'd read. The reference is provided on my reference page in the PowerPoint. If you want to read more about it, it's actually quite interesting. At least 3 of 5 murders are committed by people who are relatives, lovers, friends, neighbors, or colleagues of the victim. Women are the most common victims of killings occurring in a family, followed by husbands, sons, daughters, fathers, brothers, mothers, and sisters. Also, male adolescents, air quotes, sons, are more likely to kill their parents after years of suffering abuse at the hands of their parents. Alright, now we will discuss the sad subject, child abuse. Child abuse is when a parent or a caregiver, whether through actions or failing to act, cause injury, death, emotional harm, or risk of a serious harm to a child. There are many forms of child maltreatment, including neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, exploitation, and emotional abuse. Weapons of opportunity are usually used in the abuse or violent killing of a child. How sad. Children who retaliate to abuse. The term refers to as children killing a parent is parricide. Adolescents are more likely than children to kill a parent. Adolescents who become young adolescent killers are more likely to come from abusive homes, and the abuse within the home has peaked substantially. Adolescents who experience an enormous amount of stress to the abuse within the home and feelings of helplessness, which may lead one to participate in the actions of killing the adolescent's parents. The type of parent who is killed by his or her child doesn't care about reforming the child's behavior. Instead, he or she is addicted to the power over the child and the pleasure derived from exercising it. Many times, a parent such as this will couple physical abuse with severe psychological abuse. The parent may accomplish this by rejecting, isolating, exploiting, betraying the child. This type of verbal abuse is usually accompanied, sorry about that guys, by severe domination, and the child may be controlled so strictly that the parental restrictions amount to virtual imprisonment. Now, I read this quote off of an article and or study by Julia Rowe, and she did a study about a boy named Cody, and it was just about how he grew up in an abusive home and just the consequences of this abusive home led to later on in his life. If you want to read more about it, please go to the reference page. It's a great article. Alright, honor killings. The traditional practice in some countries of killing a family member who is believed to have brought shame on the family. This type of killing is extremely common in certain cultures such as Pakistan. The acts of killing is committed by a male, and the target of these killings are usually a woman. Females are killed under the circumstances of refusing an arranged marriage, having sex outside the marriage, becoming a rape victim, which brings shame to the family because of the unfortunate event, dressing in a manner that is viewed inappropriate, participating in non-heterosexual relations, and renouncing one's faith. And then the picture provided is just, statistics of the average of women that experience this. There's a link provided beside the photo. You can check it out if you're really interested. It was pretty interesting to me. So, your choice. Now, rampant gangs and drug killings. These killings are attributed to young males with an underdeveloped sense of identification with the human race, no social support, and seeking pure acceptance. These individuals lack the coping skills necessary to cope without conflict and dissension that occurs in everyday life and resorts to violence to resolve their issues and emotions. Now, the photo provided is taken by a photographer named Robert Yeager, and he was extremely interested in Latin street culture. And basically, he was offered a story about gangs, and it seems like an interesting challenge to him due to his previous interest with the Latino culture. So, it was a great article. I suggest you go read all about it. Now, this is probably one of my favorite quotes. We're not going to talk a whole lot about it. I'm just going to let you reflect on it. Any society that gives up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both. And this was by Benjamin Franklin. So, let's move on. Mass killings and mass killers. An individual that murders in large numbers, usually not fixed, of human beings in a single episode. Mass killings are commonly carried out by white suicidal lone males with guns who have the perception of being wronged by society, and the retaliation against those he seldomly knows by mass murder. The mass murderer does not normally experience the guilt after these killings. An example of these killings would be the Columbine High School shooting. Another example would be the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. And there's pictures provided to just show the scene. Okay? Serial killers. An individual who commits murder on repeated occasion. This type of killer experiences the impulse to hunt and kill others. This type of individual can be classified as delusional or simply a child predator. Now, examples of these serial killers would be the Zodiac Killer, Charles Mason, Jack the Ripper, H.H. Holmes, and Eileen. And I'm not going to say her last name because I slaughter it every time. But there's photos provided above to show the faces of all these people I've mentioned. Now, 3 political violent killings. Now, what do all these 3 words have in common? Fear. Now, assassination, to murder a prominent person by sudden or secret attacks offered the political reason. An example of these would be President Lincoln, President Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Julius Caesar, etc., etc. Terrorism. Violence or the threat of violence in which civilians are the target. Now, we all remember the Boston bombing. It happened a few years ago. 9/11 happened, I think, when I was maybe in the 3rd grade. And then terrorism has actually been around for a really long time. A great example would be the Ku Klux Klan. Now, genocide. The deliberate and systematic extermination of a national, racial, political, or cultural group. An example would be, obviously, the Holocaust, Bosnia. Yeah. So, let's move on. Now we're going to discuss natural violent killings. Here we go. Natural disasters. Any event or force of nature that has catastrophic consequences, such as hurricanes, earthquakes, and tsunamis. Hurricanes are a violent tropical storm of the western North Atlantic, having wind speeds of or in excess of 72 miles an hour. Okay, examples of hurricanes would be Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Ivan, and Hurricane Andrew. Now, Hurricane Andrew happened in 1992. It was a Category 5. Wind speeds got up to 165 miles an hour, and there was a lot of death. Hurricane Katrina happened in 2005. It was a Category 3, and wind speeds got up to about 125 miles an hour. Okay, and Hurricane Ivan happened in 2004. It was a Category 5 hurricane, and wind speeds got up to 165 miles an hour, and landfall in Gulf Shores. Now, I'm mentioning this hurricane last because it's extremely personal to me. My family went through a lot of heartache. It took a long time for us to rebuild, but we got through it. Now, earthquakes. A series of vibrations induced in the Earth's crust by an abrupt rupture and rebound of rocks in the elastic strain that has been slowly accumulating. Examples of earthquakes would be the 2010 Haiti earthquake, the 2004 Indonesia earthquake, and I actually looked this earthquake up in 1556, the China earthquake. Now, the 2010 Haiti earthquake was a magnitude of 7. It killed around 227,570 people. The Indonesia 2004 earthquake was a magnitude of 9.1, and it killed up to 227,898 people. And then the 1556 China earthquake was a magnitude of about an 8 and killed around 830,000 people. Okay, tsunamis. A very high, large wave in the ocean that is usually caused by an earthquake under the sea, and that causes great destruction when it reaches land. Now, an example would be the March of 2011 Japan tsunami. It killed more than 8,000 people, and is actually the 4th largest ever recorded tsunami, which I thought was really interesting as well. Okay, on to the next. Now we will discuss accidents. Accidents imply that nothing could have been done to prevent the loss of life, thereby contributing to the lack of prevention in the future. Motor vehicle fatalities are most common types of the accidental deaths from the age of 1 to 75 and are the #1 cause of all deaths between the age of 10 to 45. Now keep in mind what causes accidents, such as human error, substance abuse, or careless driving. Hence, the photo above. Okay. Now, what have we learned? Conclusion. Physical violent killings. With the modernization of our society comes with the accomplishments and consequences. With modernization comes a form of isolation, antisocialism, which is a breeding ground for abnormal behavior. It is important to remember that violence feeds on violence, and the law of proportion teaches us that goodness also feeds on goodness. So let's stay positive, people, and encourage others to be positive and not to focus on the negative. Easier said than done. Natural violent killings. Natural disasters will always exist as long as there is nature, and the development of our society induces higher risk due to an increase in population that are forever changing to the physical environment. Global warming is attributed to the human race altering the environment to fit the needs of survival for the human race. Human error and responsibility is a major factor at play when classifying accidents. It is important to consider these factors when determining an accident. So, I hope you have learned a lot from this presentation. It was probably one of my favorite chapters. And obviously, the next slide is all my references. If you need to check anything or if you're interested in anything, go look. I mean, I learned so much from the articles that I read. So, this is it, guys. Bye.